Have you ever felt an invisible string yanking you into every conversation, every crisis, every frantic text that flashes across your screen? It's almost reflex. Your phone buzzes, your emotions spike, and before your brain can catch up, your fingers are already typing, explaining, soothing, fixing. Carl Jung would call that string an unconscious complex, a knot of unexamined needs that hands your psychic energy to the loudest voice in the room. Cut that string and entire rooms fall silent. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop being instantly available, the world panics. Not because you vanished, but because their control did. When you withdraw, the social fabric around you ripples. Agendas unravel, projections collapse, and the people who relied on your knee-jerk yes find themselves alone with their own noise. Jung warned that whatever we refuse to confront inside ourselves is flung outward as demand, blame, or drama. Your constant accessibility has been the perfect screen on which others project their chaos. Shut the screen off, and they're forced to face the static within. Think of your attention as psychic currency. Jung's studies on libido, far beyond physical drive, framed it as raw life force, neutral, potent, finite. Every unsolicited apology, every after-harms reply bleeds that currency into black hole accounts that never pay interest. Worse, the brain records the leak as normal, rewiring you for exhaustion. That's why you end a people-pleasing day bone-tired, yet weirdly hollow. The body's spent, but the soul never got to invest in anything that mattered. And predictability? It's a discount label on your identity. Jung's concept of the persona, the social mask we wear to survive, becomes a straitjacket when we confuse it with the self. The helpful, ever-present mask earns quick applause, but applause is cheap. The price is authenticity. Keep the mask on too long and people stop seeing you, they see only the role. Roles are replaceable. When you finally say no, they don't feel betrayed by you. They feel inconvenienced that their favorite mask developed a spine. So test it. One full day. When the next guilt-laced request hits, do nothing, at least for an hour. Feel the itch to reply? That itch isn't kindness, it's conditioning. Observe it like Jungian shadow work. Ah, there's my fear of being unloved. Let the fear sit without anesthetic. By nightfall, you'll discover two truths. First, most emergencies self-resolve. Second, the people who value for you, not for utility, remain. This, Jung said, is individuation, the lifelong trek from puppet to sovereign. Individuation isn't mystical, it's brutally practical. It's the email you ignore because your peace is worth more than someone else's laziness. It's the invitation you decline without a 3-paragraph justification. It's silence used not as punishment, but as preservation. Each boundary redirects libido back into your core, where it transmutes into clarity, creativity, depth. Yes, you will be called distant, selfish, arrogant. That's projection again. Your boundary spotlights their dependence. Hold steady. Jung reminded us that loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter to you. When you seal the leaks, you finally have bandwidth for conversations that matter. To write the book, to lift the weight, to sit alone and enjoy the rare music of your own thinking. Notice too how power shifts. Walk into a meeting after 2 days of selective silence and watch eyes readjust. Your presence feels thicker because it isn't diffused across 100 trivial interactions. Psychic energy conserved becomes gravitational. People orbit what they respect. But channel this wisely. Stopping availability isn't becoming an ice wall, it's becoming a gate with intention. A gate opens for reciprocity, closes for extraction. Ask yourself before every commitment, will this trade grow me or drain me? If growth, engage fully. Generosity is potent when voluntary. If drain, decline gracefully and move on. No essays, no guilt. Remember Jung's caution. That which we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. If you keep reacting, life will feel fated to exhaustion. Bring it to consciousness. Name the complex, people-pleaser, hero, rescuer, and retire it. In the vacancy, create rituals that feed your center. Dawn journaling, tech-free evenings, weekly solitude walks. Rituals aren't luxuries, they're insurance policies on your energy. And if the old itch flares, because it will, anchor to this mantra. My silence is not absence, it is alignment. Say it, breathe it. Let the nervous system relearn safety in non-response. Soon the world will calibrate to your new tempo or drift away, and both outcomes are gifts. Let's walk through a real-time thought experiment. Picture your life as a medieval fortress. Every notification is a knock at the gate. For years, you've left the drawbridge down, torches blazing, banners fluttering. Open 24/7. Travelers wander in, admire the view, trash the banquet hall and stagger off. You call that hospitality. The fortress calls it a siege. Jung would call it psychic hemorrhage, life force bleeding into strangers' want. First lesson, identify your siege points. Grab a notebook. For the next 24 hours, every time you feel the jolt, phone buzz, email ding, door knock, write down what was requested. How urgent was it really? How did your body react? Did responding serve your long-term mission, or just someone else's momentary comfort? By sunset, you'll see the pattern. Most demands masquerade as emergencies, but dissolve into mist the moment you don't leap. That's not neglect, that's a reality check. Jung insisted that consciousness expands when we drag these autopilot impulses into daylight, naming them, taming them, and when necessary, abandoning them. Second lesson, the persona price tag. Jung's persona is the well-pressed mask we wear to earn applause. Yours might be the fix, the nice guy, the always-on confidant. Masks are useful at the masquerade, but fall asleep in one, and you wake up wondering why your face hurts. The price tag reads, identity erosion, chronic fatigue, simmering resentment. Yet you keep paying because applause feels cheaper than authenticity. Until the day you stop, the first time you let a message linger unanswered, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You'll hear the persona crack like old plaster. Behind it, a deeper voice whispering, we're finally alone. Third lesson, the mathematics of scarcity. Economics 101. Rarity breeds value. Apply it to human presence and watch how the room recalibrates. When you ration your words, each sentence gains gravitational pull. When you ration your appearances, each arrival feels like sunrise. This isn't social gamesmanship, it's energetic hygiene. Jung compared psychic energy to money in a closed economy. Spend it on trivia and you'll file for bankruptcy when purpose comes knocking. Practical drill, the delay tactic. For the next week, set a minimum 1-hour delay on every non-life or death reply. Use that hour to breathe, stretch, sip water, stare at a ceiling. Anything but justify yourself. The world will keep spinning, and you'll feel a curious surge, a reclaiming, as if someone returned a stolen wallet stuffed with your own currency. Watch how people react. The respectful ones will adapt. The opportunists will escalate, fire off triple question mark texts, unleash guilt grenades. Everything okay? That discomfort is diagnostic. It tells you who valued the real you versus the vending machine version. Fourth lesson, shadow feeding frenzy. Jung's shadow is the cachet of traits we disown. Anger, selfishness, power. When you're endlessly available, other people's shadows feast. They outsource their laziness to your diligence, their insecurity to your validation. Pull away, and their shadows go hungry. Expect backlash, sulking, sarcasm, story spawning. Hold your ground. Their discomfort is the sound of dependency dying. Ritual. Build a sanctum hour. Choose a daily slot. Dawn, lunch, midnight, where no one can reach you. Phone on airplane mode, door locked. Call it sanctum hour. Use it to journal, meditate, lift weights, or simply exist. Guard it like a dragon guards gold. This single ritual reprograms your nervous system to recognize that silence is not absence. Silence is sovereignty. Fifth lesson, the alchemy of withdrawal. Alchemy turns lead into gold. Withdrawal turns noise into wisdom. The moment you retreat, your brain stops juggling other people's dramas and starts forging insights. Einstein credited his breakthroughs to combinatory play, the mental roaming that only happens when nobody's pinging you for status updates. Your best ideas are waiting behind a backlog of unread notifications. Clear the queue and they'll file in. Shadow work. Prompt for tonight. Write a one-page letter to the version of you who can never say no. No diplomacy. Be brutally candid. Thank them for keeping you safe in childhood. Then, tell them why they can retire now. Burn or shred the page. Symbolism matters. Jung loved a good ritual because the unconscious speaks in symbols, not spreadsheets. Sixth lesson. Guilt is a phantom limb. Expect phantom pain. You'll glance at your silent phone and feel guilty, like you abandoned a pet. That guilt is the echo of outdated programming. Observe it, label it phantom, let it pass. Every time you survive the discomfort without caving, the guilt shrinks. Neuroscience shows that resisting a compulsive urge rewires synapses. Jung anticipated this a century ago when he said, "We don't solve our problems, we outgrow them." If you've ever felt a micro rush after hitting send, you've tasted the most addictive currency on the planet, unpredictable social reward. Neurologists call it variable ratio reinforcement, the same slot machine's patent in neon. Carl Jung didn't have fMRI scans, but he intuited the payoff loop. He wrote that the psyche longs for completion, so every unanswered text triggers a tiny quest for wholeness. You respond to erase tension, the brain dispenses dopamine, and the loop locks in. Quit the loop and the brain screams like a creditor at your door. That's why the first afternoon of deliberate silence feels itchy, almost panicky. Your neural economy just defaulted on a high-interest loan. Hold out. By day 3, cravings dip. By day 7, you'll notice surges of steady focus. What Jung would label libido restored to the self. Translation, you stop living on borrowed hits and start funding long-term projects. Books, businesses, bodies, relationships that don't evaporate with a low battery signal. Quick hack. Switch your phone display to grayscale. Research shows removing candy-colored icons slashes compulsive checking by up to 37%. It's a sensory fast, and your psyche loves fasting. Jung said deprivation brings unconscious contents to the surface. In the grey void, you finally glimpse the motives behind each tap. Spoiler, half the taps are boredom dressed as obligation. Modern self-help talks about setting boundaries, like tacking sticky notes on a cubicle wall. Jung, steeped in myth, would laugh. He'd tell you boundaries are numinous gates, thresholds guarded by archetypes. Cross uninvited, and the gatekeeper exacts a toll. Your energy, your sanity, your peace. Visualize your life as 4 concentric rings. Inner sanctum, solitude, intimate thoughts, core rituals. Council chamber, a handful of allies who earn front row access. Marketplace, acquaintances, co-workers, polite society. Barbiton, strangers, social media, random asks. Your availability should dilute as rings radiate outward. But most of us invert the map. We gift strangers instant replies while the council waits. And we never see the sanctum because we're busy in the Barbican staging PR stunts. Correct the inversion and watch anxiety plunge. It's geometry for the soul. Exercise. Draw the rings, then place every recurring name in your phone into its proper circle. Feel the cognitive dissonance when you realize that the friend who only pings at 1 a.m. crises sits on your calendar like royalty while your creative dream languishes in exile. Rearrange. The unconscious respects a diagram more than a wish. co-availability, and some people will circle back with generosity you never expected. That's the boomerang effect. Withholding, over-punishing, forces others to grow muscles they didn't know they had. Parents who stop solving every teenager meltdown watch resilience sprout. Managers who quit hand-holding see hidden leadership emerge. Jung framed it as enantiodromia, the tendency of things to flip into their opposite when pushed to extreme. So yes, some relationships will shrivel, accept the compost. Others will bloom into reciprocity. Accept the flowers too. The pregnant pause. In conversation, answer after a 2-second inhale. The gap feels like a chasm to people hooked on instant affirmation. Half of them solve their own issues before you even speak. The other half reveal motives you'd have missed while rushing to rescue. Soft ghost. Not the cold turkey vanish, but a measured fade out from group chats that chew bandwidth. You aren't punishing, you're reallocating capital. Use the time dividend to phone someone who actually matters. One deep call trumps 50 laurel replies. Deadline decoys. When a chronic demander drops an urgent ask, reply, "Happy to look at this after Friday." 2 outcomes. They sort it themselves, or they realize their crisis was optional. Either way, you defend the frontier without firing a shot. Remember, silence, wielded conscientiously, is not passive aggression, it's active discernment. Cut 1 guilt head off, 3 grow back. Head 1, but they need me. Head 2, I'm being rude. Head 3, what if they leave? Jungian remedy, dialogue with the Hydra. Write each guilt line in a journal margin, then counterscript with mature truths. They need themselves first. Honesty is respect. Perpetual access is disrespect. To them and you. Those who leave at the first boundary were placeholders, not partners. Reread tonight. Neural pathways strengthen on repetition. Myths have lasted millennia on that principle. Picture a pond at dawn. Still surface, mirror clarity. Drop 1 pebble and rings radiate for minutes. Now imagine a hailstorm. Ripples cancel each other. Nothing reflects. Hyper-availability is hail. Strategic silence is dawn. Jung argued that the psyche seeks equilibrium, the quiet state from which a single intention travels far. When you withdraw reactive chatter, each move you do make travels like a clean wave. Farther, stronger, with less effort. This is why a quiet leader's single sentence can redirect an entire team, while a chronic talker needs a megaphone. Power is not volume, it is undistorted signal. Micro drill, before entering any room, Zoom call, family dinner. Pause at the threshold and breathe 3 times. Let the pond still. Then step in. You'll notice people glance up. They felt the wave before you spoke a word. Most availability breaches happen below the chin, in the body. Shoulders tilt forward, chest caves, voice rises half a register. The body says, "I'm open, take me." Jung believed the unconscious speaks through posture, long before it writes words in the neocortex. So train your fascia to hold the new boundary. Anchor stance. Feet hip-thwip, weight balanced. Crown lifting as if a string pulls you skyward. Exhale. Time out. When ambushed by a request, exhale fully before replying. The diaphragm reset, drops cortisol, and buys you thinking time. Micro-turn. Angle your torso 15 degrees away from energy vampires. Subtle but primal. Wolves understand it, so will humans. Bodies broadcast what mouths later regret. Program the broadcast, and half your nos speak themselves. You've heard say no more often, but here's a trickier skill. Say yes, slowly. A slow yes forces the asker to reveal context, effort, and stakes, giving you data to decide. Try this script. Interesting. Can you send me the specifics? I'll review tomorrow. Half the time requests evaporate, the other half arrive with clarity, and you can consent without resentment. Jung wrote that delayed response lets the unconscious incubate a wiser solution. In practical terms, the delay screens out nonsense. Fear of missing out keeps phones glowing at 2 a.m. Jung would diagnose FOMO as the ego's terror of losing collective approval. Flip it to joy of missing out. Relish the void where mediocre stimuli once lived. Practical cue. When you skip an event, write one sentence beginning, "Because I stayed home, and finish with again. Outlined my podcast, felt rested at dawn. Stargaze for the first time in months. Joy documented rewires rewards circuitry. Picture a lighthouse on a cliff. It flashes once every 8 seconds. Bright, then darkness. Ships far below time their course by that rhythm. If the light stayed on non-stop, sailors would lose the pulse. Distances blur, collisions rise. Your periodic light, the deliberate cycle of presence and absence, guides others better than constant glare. That is the paradox Jung uncovered. Withdrawal is not abandonment, it is navigation.